All right, we're going to go ahead and get this party started. I'm Lyle Hanna. We're delighted you're here. I know more people are going to join us, but we'll take them as they come. It's okay. We've got a couple of hours worth of activity. We told a lot of people join us anytime because I tell you what, anytime you join this conversation, you're going to learn something. So we're just delighted you've joined us for Uplift Kentucky. I'm Lyle Hanna. I'm the kind of founder of this crazy idea, and I'm joined today by Andrea Merriweather. Andrea, say hi so you can pop up here.
Hello, everyone.
And she'll be introducing some guests, and we're going to put this together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Andrea, what a talent. She's the Director of Brand Strategy and Innovation for TKT and Associates over in Louisville. She works with clients all over the globe, and get this, she works on helping them develop and execute their DE&I policies and practices. So we're going to have one of her bosses going to talk to us, and others. She's going to be talking along the way. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to just say a couple of opening words about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What a big deal it is. But you know what? It's been overshadowed by COVID, like everything has been. If it weren't for COVID, I believe DE&I would be just front page news every day right now, and it needs to be. We've been distracted for a while, but you know, we picked this month because it's Juneteenth and it's also Pride Month. Juneteenth is coming up and it's Pride Month, and we thought this is a good time to talk about this stuff. Those of you know us that know that we run HR for a whole lot of companies. We advise a lot of companies on HR. So we'll have a lot of our clients on this call too. And you know what? They know that they need to do something, and they don't know exactly what to do sometimes, or they're struggling with what to do. So part of the reason we put this together is to give people ideas, get people to share successes that they're having with DE&I. What are you doing and what works? And we also got some people that are going to talk about what doesn't work. But you know, you need to know all of that. So you know, we are motivated by the idea to do better. We believe that we are better and we're stronger when we're more diverse. Our company was founded on a claim that all of us are created equal. United we stand. You know, even our faith helps us understand that all of us are valuable. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. Who learned that song when they were a kid? A couple of people must have, right? Well, building diversity, equity, and inclusion is the right thing for business to do. It's going to make our businesses and our communities stronger. So we want to keep getting the positive message out there about why we ought to do this thing. And I mentioned businesses are looking for ideas. And so we've got 30 different people that are going to speak to us today and share their ideas. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun to hear from them. By the way, we only gave them 5 to 7 minutes. So if you fall off for a bit or you miss something, don't worry. The next person is going to be just as good or better. It'll be fun. And by tomorrow, we're going to have a copy of this out. So we'll send it to everybody so you can catch up and pick up on anything you might have missed. The other thing I might mention is that we felt like there are a lot of charities that are doing good work in this regard. And so we wanted to raise some money for them. So we're going to raise some money today for 4 different charities. I noticed some money's already come in. I looked earlier today and there was already $500 in there. We're going to try to get to 20,000. So if you're feeling generous today, you're in the right place. We picked Kentucky Habitat for Humanity, and somebody will tell you about each one of these, but boy, they were founded on trying to build equity and diversity and help people that are have less opportunity, have more opportunity. The Urban League of Lexington, Kentucky, and Louisville, for the great work that they're doing to help people enhance their position in life. Black Soil of Kentucky. Do you know there's 76,000 farmers in Kentucky, and only 1.4% of them are African American? So, you know, they have a heritage that came from there, and a lot of them want to get back to that, and we want to help them be successful doing that. We also have a group called Lexington Black Prosperity Initiative. And oh my gosh, we got 2 great speakers to tell you about what they're doing to give young people a head start and a better chance. So listen, we're going to keep this interactive. I want you to feel free to put stuff in the chat box, questions, comments, anything else you'd like to do. And if you just feel like you have to speak up, take your darn mute off and say hello. I want to say something. You might want to put this thing in speaker view. That way you'll be able to, the speaker will be bigger, and I hope that'll work. And I'm going to do that in just a minute myself. But let's get this thing started. Andrea, I think you've got some music to kick this thing off with, don't you?
Yes, thank you so much, Wow. I just wanted to invite everyone to drop your handles in the chat. Let's follow each other. Let's be very engaged throughout this experience. Drop your handles, your social media handles, your website links to your companies in the chat so that we can all follow and engage with each other throughout this experience, pre and post. Without further ado, I am so excited to introduce our first special performer of the day, the Kentucky Gentlemen, dear friends of mine, Derek and Brandon Campbell from Versailles, Kentucky. Prepare yourself to experience the new sound of Kentucky. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi. Hello. Yes, as you said, thank y'all for having us. We are the Kentucky Gentlemen. Yes, we grew up in Versailles, Kentucky. We're real excited to be here. We're gonna sing a song for y'all, our latest single called "Vibin'," which the world premiere for the music videos just recently on CMT. So you can catch that every day if you like, and you can check us out anywhere at VKY Gentlemen and our VKYGentlemen.com. Check out merchandise. You can buy stuff there. It'd be wonderful. Here's Vibin'. Just a couple of kids, always up to no good, acting like we had stars down in Hollywood, rocking thrift store leather, stealing Marlboros, driving daddy's old wagon like a record head, staying out past 2, feeling high as the moon. Didn't know who I was, but I knew you. Yeah, we were vibing, styling, profiling. Every moment spent it on you. It was cosmic, hit me like a comet, flying down Honeymoon Avenue. Yeah, we were vibing. Making memories of us like tattoos on my mind. We were bottom surfing, slipping every Friday night. No, our lives weren't perfect, but it sure felt right. I give up every penny just to hit rewind. We were young, dumb, and tough, and that was enough. We were so naive, we were so in love. Yeah, we were vibing, styling, and profiling. Every moment spent it on you. It was cosmic, hit me like a comet, flying down Honeymoon Avenue. Yeah, we were vibing. We were vibing. Staying out past 2, feeling high as the moon. Yeah, I met me when I met you. We were vibing, silent, profiling. Every moment spent it on you, ooh, baby. It was cosmic, hit me like a comet, flying down Honeymoon Avenue. We were vibing. Oh, oh, oh. Vibing, 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 vibing.
All right, Kentucky Gentlemen, thank you.
Appreciate it so much.
Way to get us off and running. We sure appreciate it. You can hang with us as long as you can. We love having you here. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, we're going to go talk about Kentucky Habitat for Humanity, or Habitat for Humanity Global. because we've got Clive Rainey with us. Clive was the first volunteer for Habitat for Humanity back in the 70s, 60s, 70s time.
77.
77. There you go. And Clive, what a great guy. He's worked all over the world for Habitat, and he comes to Kentucky almost every year to speak at our annual conference. Just a true asset, a true gem. Clive, so glad you're here. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to share with you the birth of Habitat for Humanity and where this idea came from and where it has traveled from that time. Some of you know that back in the time when they tried to cross the bridge at Selma, the Edmund Pettus Bridge at Selma, Alabama, all those years ago, that they failed on the first attempt. You remember the famous pictures of John Lewis being beaten down. Well, there was a volunteer there. Her name was Viola Liuzzo. She was a housewife from Michigan. She had come to Alabama to help as a logistics volunteer. So she was taking people to and from the airport. On her return trip from one of those airport runs, a car pulled up next to her and shot and killed Viola Liuzzo. With that death, a very powerful thing happened. There were two young lawyers in Montgomery, Alabama, who had been defending Ku Klux Klan violators. And they looked at each other with Viola Liuzzo's death and said, we are on the wrong side of this thing. And Morris Dees, who would found the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Millard Fuller, who would found Habitat for Humanity, were changed. And the world was changed in that moment. Years later, some years later, we would have a homeowner who at her dedication stood up and said, I feel like I've been dead and buried and dug up. The very resurrection of the spirit of Viola Liuzzo, bringing it to life. Well, we also had another homeowner there in Sumter County, Georgia, a woman who was to get a home at Koinonia Farm where we were actually started. And she lived in a trailer on the land of her mistress, if you will. In 1970, South Georgia was no different than it had been in 1870. It had been like there was no Emancipation Proclamation. This woman lived in this broken down trailer and worked for this woman, and she was selected to get a home through the program that would become Habitat for Humanity. When the mistress learned this, she got so angry that she cut off the woman's water. That's how, instead of congratulating the woman, she decided to punish her for getting a home and leaving her. Well, Christmas time came, and the mistress told the lady, she said, I need 2 of those cakes that you make me at Christmas time every year, and I want you to make them for me. And the woman looked at her and said, well, I would, but I don't have any water. The mistress said to her, I'll turn your water back on long enough for you to make those cakes, and then I'll turn it off again. Well, that woman, in a short time after that, got her home at Koinonia Farm, a home and a piece of land, the greatest form of justice there is. And she was freed from that kind of life. Well, years later, in Anniston, Alabama, where the Freedom Riders bus had been burned, we had a lady that we were helping. Jimmy Carter was there building houses on the other side of town, and we were on the other side. And I visited with a lady named Mrs. Jesperson. And I said to Ms. Jesperson, so what's happened for you this week? And she said, I got a new porch. A new screened-in porch on this house that my husband built years ago, and now he's been dead some years. And I said, who did that for you? And she said, Southern Baptist World Changers did that for us. Well, we had a program going in Anniston with the young mayor there and the Habitat affiliate to bring together all kinds of people to help change Anniston. They had accepted that they no longer wanted shacks there. And I said, well, tell me what it's really done for you. Tell me how it's helped you. And she said, you see that vacant lot next to me? And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, there was a shack there, and it had indoor plumbing. What it didn't have was outdoor plumbing. So everything just fell on the ground under that house. And I could not sit here and enjoy my porch. And then she turned and she pointed across the street. She said, "You see that empty lot over there?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "There was a shack there that grown men regularly took 12-year-old girls into. And I would stand here on my porch and call to those girls and say, 'Honey, don't go in there with those men.' And those men destroyed my porch, throwing rocks and bottles at it and yelling at me to go inside." And she said, "Now the shack that stank is gone. And the shack that had that moral stink across the street is gone." And she said, "You see that house down the street where they're still working?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Down there lives a lady who has a 45-year-old son who is physically handicapped. They have just finished putting a bathroom in her house for the first time with a shower she can get him into and bathe him." That's justice. When you bring people to a place of safety and security, and it's expressed by all of us working together across racial lines, that's justice. I read this week in my one-year Bible, I was reading about Solomon. Solomon was considered the wisest leader who ever lived. And the quote said that while he was living, everyone in Israel lived in peace, and they all had a house and a garden. I can't imagine a greater vision for our communities than where everyone has a decent place to live and the ability to access food. And that's what Habitat for Humanity does. That's how we bring justice to the world.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Clive. We sure appreciate that. And Mary, I hear you in the background. For those you don't know, that's Mary Shearer. She's the executive director of Kentucky Habitat. And man, they are doing good things every day. We have 35 chapters across the state, and they are working to get people in houses every day. We love it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You know what? I see John Goman's on this line. John, he is the regional president for PNC Bank, and they are taking some big steps. You're wondering what you can do? Just follow in their footsteps. John, tell us what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you, Lyle. I really appreciate it. As Lyle said, I'm the regional president for PNC here in Lexington and in Southeast Kentucky. I'm very happy to be here as part of this event today. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion with this group. I'm quite proud of what PNC does in this area. I'm quite proud of what we've done for literally decades at this point. But we have really increased our focus on this area. And that's really my main message today. And I would tell any corporate, nonprofit, any group that's listening today, you know, to be significantly successful in this area, this has to be part of your culture. It has to permeate everything you do. It can't be we're going to have one meeting, we're going to run a specific program, we're going to hope for the best. It really has to be part of your corporate culture. And it really is here at PNC. And I'll describe some of this to you here very quickly. First of all, it all begins with hiring. In our hiring practices, it is a goal to have a diverse workforce. We want to look and be part of our communities. We want to look like the communities we serve. And so in every hiring decision we make at PNC, diversity is part of that equation. We're not always successful, but it is something that we look at literally at every step of the hiring process. Even more importantly than hiring, I think a lot of companies do that. What we're finding is that when you look at all levels of a corporation, and every corporation wants to hire the best person. That's natural. That's in the best interest of the company. But what you need as you move up a ladder, a corporate ladder, is you need diverse candidates to have the experience, to have had the work knowledge that they need to ultimately get those jobs. And at PNC, it's not an excuse to say, well, we just didn't have any diverse candidates for this particular job. We go find the diverse candidates. And if it takes longer and it takes harder work, then that's what we do. And I think that's the approach that we have to take to get the best folks for our company in the right jobs. Banking, it is no secret, and you can go back 50 years, you can go back 10 years, you can go back in a lot of people's minds one day. Banking has not done a great job of being a diverse industry. It has improved, but it has not been a particularly good corporate citizen over the long history. PNC, and I know many other banks, are working to change that. But it starts finding folks to hire, and it also has to be a part of your executive group of management. And I'm very proud to say at PNC, from the regional presidents model, which I'm one of 36 regional presidents in cities all over the country, our CEO and our board of directors have really worked hard to increase the diversity, both female and African American, across all of our companies. So we're doing a good job. Banks, particularly the 5th largest bank in the country, can do a lot more than just hire and have internal practices. A lot of how this works is, how do you engage in your communities, and what do you do with your lending? We're a bank, we lend money. One of the most powerful things we can do is lend money to people in these affected groups. So I'll quickly go through, as I've already mentioned, our RP model, or I'm sorry for the jargon, for our regional presidents model, my job is to be in the community, find where there are needs, and allocate resources towards them. Lyle Hanna has been on a group with PNC for many years, which is just a community engagement group, and where we go and we discuss issues, and the issues next week might be different than the issues 2 months before, but there's a lot of communication there, and it helps us understand what is facing our local community, and it's really invaluable to how we operate. Other areas, just charitable giving, nonprofits. PNC Foundation allocates hundreds of thousands of dollars to me not to me, but to our market every year. And we have a committee that allocates those monies across nonprofits with an eye towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've always been strong in that, and we continue to be strong in that. And then lastly, and that we've made a lot of headlines, and even the title of this conversation mentions $1 billion of good reasons. PNC has just decided, and some of this was prompted by what we do naturally, but some of this was prompted by the killing of George Floyd in police custody. And we just decided that, quite frankly, we think we're good stewards, but we're not doing enough, and we need to do more. And we have done more since last year. We have, and a lot of this is, kind of fuzzy bank talk, but we have dedicated $88 billion of resources towards these issues.
Wait, how much money?
$88 billion. Now this is the fuzzy banker part. Wow. But it is important, and many people think of it in terms of, well, is that a grant? What does that mean? Are you writing a check? Well, we're not writing a check for 88 billion. But what we are doing is we're putting 47 billion into home lending. Do $47 billion more in home lending to LMI borrowers and other affected folks, because we truly believe that home ownership is the best way to build generational wealth. It is the best way to take people out of poverty, and is the best way to take some of these areas in census tracts that have issues and to improve those. And so, that, not to get too far in the weeds, but we are lowering FICO score needs. Basically, we're finding people who need this money that otherwise could not get these loans, and now they will be able to. We're also, and I apologize, I'll go quickly. We're also doing 26 billion in small business lending, and that, building a business is one of the keys, and it's one of the key advantages that quite frankly many white people have had over the last century that many African American and other diverse folks have not had. we are working towards fixing that issue. And then lastly, community development loans. PNC has always been a leader in this area, but we've dedicated another 14 billion towards that, which will have an effect both in grants and other activities in this area. So back to my original point, it has to be a part of everything you do as a company. Not everybody's a bank, I realize that, but within our bank, it has to do with hiring, it has to do with community involvement, and it has to do with who we allocate our resources towards so they can take advantage of the lending that we do. So that's basically how we approach it at PNC, and I'm be happy to take any questions.
All right. John, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank
you
you so
know,
much, Val.
You betcha. Keep up the good work. Hey, the next guy, we got Brad Patrick's about to speak to us. And Brad is an executive on loan at the University of Kentucky Gatton College of Business, but he's also, he does a lot of work with us. He was the head of HR for Valvoline and Tim Persili and Gillette and Sara Lee and Delta. He's had a lot of experience. Super guy. Brad, I know you're on here, and I think you're going to just tell us what's going on. Where does executive business development and D&I, where do those cross?
There we go. Now we're cooking. We have to take.
Now you're live, huh?
Yeah, now we're live.
Brad,
let me get set up here. You know, we have the wonderful opportunity, Lyle, you and I have, to work with many organizations, many CEOs over the years, and I've learned, and I believe that the CEO's role is one of the most complicated and difficult positions to hold. They establish and reinforce an organization's purpose, mission, vision, and values. They make commitments to internal people and also their external stakeholders. You know, they lead an organization that is not necessarily democracy, but they also have to do it in a democratic environment. So a very complicated role. Therefore, my words today are directed to the people who hold these roles and have the accountability to shape and lead their cultures. You know, with the recent disappointing and tragic events related to racial and social injustice, I was poked is the right word, by an essay written by Kentucky author Wendell Berry. And some would even describe Wendell as possibly even a grouchy and maybe even a skeptical man. So we'll take it a bit as in that vein. But he was discussing in an essay called Thinking Little about the social causes behind civil rights, the reactions to war, and the current environmental debate. So let me quote here, let me read a passage. It says, "For it seems to me that the civil rights movement and the peace movement as popular causes in the electronic age have partaken far too much of the nature of fads. Not for all, certainly, but for too many, they have been fashionable politics of the moment. As causes, they have been undertaken too much in ignorance. They have been too much simplified. They have been powered too much by impatience and guilt of conscience and short-term enthusiasm, and too little by authentic social vision and long-term conviction and deliberation. For most people, those causes have remained almost entirely abstract. There has been too little personal involvement, too much involvement in organizations that were insisting other organizations should do what's right." End passage there. In working with CEOs and top-level executives, there has been a frustration in figuring out what to do next. More affinity groups, more training, more communications, more commitments. And there's a lot of frustration taking place with that. So my goal is not to bring the Uplift Kentucky event down by no stretch of the imagination, but rather point out an incredible opportunity to raise diversity, equity, inclusion to a new level of business power, just as John just described. The conditions are right. You have permission right now. My suggestion, and even a commitment to help, is to build on the work that has been done to date. Let's not throw it out, but it's time to build forward. However, as a change leader supporting culture strengthening work, and now in an incredible time to require that diversity, equity, inclusion become a strategic requirement for business. Writer Berry further suggests there is no public crisis that is not also private. I challenge executive leaders and teams to find their private crisis. First, within their organization, and second, as a contributor to society. PNC Bank is making that commitment. We have seen and been a part of companies, Lyle. You and I have done work in building and supporting great cultures, cultures that become a competitive advantage in commitment, engagement, speed, and agility for companies. What does an excellent culture of diversity, equity, inclusion look like? Right now is a very exciting time to discover that. I'm going to end a quote with another potentially recognized grouchy writer in Robert Greene. He says, allying ourselves with a cause can be an important part of our sense of purpose, as it was for Martin Luther King Jr. But it must emerge from internal process in which we have thought deeply about the subject and are committing ourselves to the cause as part of our life's work. That comes from the book, Laws of Human Nature. I look forward to listening, learning, and hearing of all your great work, leaders, but also I'm here to help and support you do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. Good work. We appreciate it. Brad's going to be back on to introduce some other people as we go along here. How many of you know Dr. Aaron Thompson? What a super guy. He's president of the Kentucky Council on Post-Education in Kentucky, but he's had a lot of good roles and he's really made a lot of contributions to Kentucky over the years. Before taking the role at the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education, he was the president of Kentucky State University and a faculty member at Eastern Kentucky University. And I just find him to be a terrific guy. We served together on the Kentucky Chamber Board of Directors, and man, he knows how to speak up and say things well. And he's just a good observer of social behavior. And he won the Kentucky Civil Rights. He was inducted into the Kentucky Civil Rights Hall of Fame in 2019. And he's got some words of advice for you. And I think it's pretty inspiring. What do you have to say, Aaron?
Hello, I hope you're having a good day. It's my pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is more than my pleasure to do that. It's important for us to have this understanding, especially for us who are in education and the private industries, to think about how we come together to create a workforce and an economic system here in Kentucky that's important to where we're trying to be. I mean, we're more than just that state that sees themselves fifth from the bottom in poverty. We're that state that can see ourselves in being at the top and leading the nation in a variety of places. And a strong, sustainable economy is one of it. But we can't do it by leaving people behind. I want to tell you a little bit about me, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we want to do here in Kentucky and why I think you should be a part of it. So Lyle, thank you for this invitation. And without a doubt, folks, thank you for allowing me to take up a piece of your day with my few words. Once again, Aaron Thompson is my name. I'm the president of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. We are the coordinating body for all of public higher education here in Kentucky, our community and technical colleges, as well as our four-year institutions. It's my pleasure to be that person that represents all of higher education in Kentucky and be that lead to talk about exactly what kind of strategic way we should be thinking about higher education. Now, I have to tell you, I mean, a part of this is coming from my personal background. A part of this is coming from a core belief that I have. And I believe all leaders should be led with a core value system that goes way beyond just the job they've been put in. And this is where I'm coming from. I'm from the hills of Kentucky, Clay County, Kentucky. My father was an illiterate coal miner. My mother had an 8th grade education, and we were sharecroppers. We were poor. And when I say poor, I mean really poor. You know, I had 8 brothers and sisters. I've lost a few, but all of my siblings, except for one, did not graduate from high school. Many were in a place where they didn't even make it through elementary school. So education to me is extremely important. The idea that being an African American from the hills of Kentucky that was poor, now leading higher education for Kentucky, is exactly the power of education. It's exactly why we should look at those things that we're not doing well. If we have an educational system that promotes good, strong education, then what we're really saying more than anything else, we're not going to leave anybody behind. And in higher education, that's what we're focused on. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have strong operational definitions that we can measure ourselves by in doing that. The analogy that I give and how we're promoting ourselves in higher education is around closing gaps, and not just closing gaps by squeezing people of the majority and the minority up and them down. It is about looking at how we can have a high set of goals, standards that we're wanting to reach, and then taking everybody up to those standards. That's the way we look at it. So we look at promoting gap closing to opportunities. We look at it from an equitable standpoint. Now, the example that I give is that of a dance. You know, if we see higher education as a dance, what we're wanting to do is to invite people from all different kinds of backgrounds, representing all different kinds of people, races, religion, thoughts, the way you think. And we want to bring them into this dance. We want to bring them to our institutions. And our goal, more than anything else, is to make them feel comfortable at the dance. So diversity then for us is an aspect of a population. It is something that, yes, in many cases may be looked at as different, but it's also something that we argue that you learn more from people that are different from you than people like you. So it is a learning paradigm. It's kind of like the way we have our institutions set up. You take some arts, you take some sciences, you know, you take some labs, you take all different kinds of things because it makes you whole. So diversity is about being whole. It's about learning to appreciate people from different backgrounds with different philosophies and beliefs. It's not about necessarily changing yours, but it is about opening yourself up to learning from theirs and let them learn from yours. So diversity is inviting all kinds of people to your dance. Inclusion is asking them all to dance. That's why we in higher education want to engage all of our students, faculty, and staff to be an essential part of where we're trying to go. To be that focus of saying that we need to be helping our students to not only know how to fish, but we have to give them the opportunity to fish in order to fish for a lifetime. So inclusion is about creating a lifelong learning process for everybody, not leaving anybody behind. It's asking them all to dance. Then what is equity? Equity, then, I tell people, not everybody's as great of a dancer as I am. You know, Lyle, I'm sure you're not. But equity is about teaching everybody to dance based on their baseline. It's helping them to believe that they can dance and giving them those inputs it takes to make it happen. That's what we're doing in higher education. We are closing gaps in Kentucky in higher education. I'm proud of that. We are actually closing our attainment gaps. Over the last many years, we've increased our attainment significantly. We needed about a 1.7% increase, and we're going about a 3.5. We need to have more degrees and credentials, short-term credentials and four-year degrees and graduate degrees, all of those we need in Kentucky to build a strong labor force. We're doing that, but we're closing gaps, especially with our underrepresented minorities. That's important for us. That's our focus. That's the way we're operationalized, the way we see this. It has an outcome we can measure, but it's also a learning process. How do we help all of our faculty, staff, and others to know how to look at each individual student from where they're coming from, to give them those equity inputs that they need to be all that they can be, not just for the state, but for themselves and their families. So this is important. So all of you who are in this position that can contribute to this dialogue, that can contribute to this movement, that can contribute for us to have a strong state that's focusing on what we need to focus to create a strong economy and not leave anybody behind. That's the way I see it, and I invite you to see it that way too. It is my pleasure to be here. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. We appreciate that. Great input and insight. Oh my gosh. You know what? We got two more real superstars here, Ralph Deschabert and Kristen Holly from Brown Forman. And Ralph is the Senior Vice President, Chief Diversity, Inclusion, and Global Community Relations Officer. Fit that on a business card. And Kristen Holly is the Senior Vice President, Chief People Officer, Places and Communication Officer. Holy smokes. They got some big titles over there. They also have some good products, I might add. Ralph and Kristen, we are so glad you're here. We'd like to hear what's going on at your place.
Hi, Lyle. I'll do a quick sound check with you. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Sounds great.
Fantastic. Well, if you weren't sure who was who, I'm Kirsten. And then Ralph, can we do a quick sound check with you and make sure people know who you are of the two of us?
And I'm Ralph. Hope you can hear me okay.
Can hear you great, Ralph.
Loud and clear, Ralph.
Well, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to give another piece of this puzzle on how to support DE&I in the organizations in which we are a part. One of the things that Ralph and I believe is somewhat of our secret sauce to making this work at Brown Forman is the very clear and committed partnership that he and I have with each other. One facet of my job is to lead global human resources. And one facet of Ralph's job is to lead global diversity and inclusion. And we realized early on in our relationship that our goals are shared. I know in some organizations, it's simply one person who does both HR and DE&I. But at Brown Forman, there are two of us. And we recognize that we have been able to accelerate the work of DE&I in our culture based on the strong relationship and partnership Ralph and I have together. There were some things that we did specifically to make sure we were in the trenches together, working on very complex issues together, and understanding how each of us work as leaders. If you would like to get a sense of the most major project that he and I have worked on recently, he and I invite you to the Brown Forman website, where under the diversity and inclusion area, you will find our diversity and inclusion strategy. This is called Many Spirits, One Brown Forman. It is the first strategy of its kind that we have published that is this comprehensive, and it includes the ambitions we have at Brown Forman for where we would like to be between now, or actually 2019 when it was published, and 2030. We established a number of initiatives in here too that require Ralph and I to work together. And he and I did this intentionally. We don't believe we would be able to achieve the ambitions in this strategy if he and I didn't hold each other accountable and also our teams accountable for the important collaboration and partnership that has to exist across both of our organizations. We've invested a lot of time in our relationship. We meet regularly. We share goals, we talk about talent, we talk about performance, we talk about results. And very early on, we established rules of the road, if you will, for our level of candor and willingness to talk openly about the opportunities and challenges at Brown Forman when it comes to DE&I efforts. This has led to a very trusting relationship between the two of us. And he and I both believe that we would not be able to achieve what we have if it wasn't for a partnership we were willing to commit to very early on. Ralph is going to talk more about some of the specific things we've done in the last, Ralph, I guess it's been a year, that have furthered this relationship after publishing our strategy. We do hope you will go to the website to see what this strategy looks like. We make this available to all organizations so you can see if there's any part of it that fits with the work you might be doing. We also have on our website a list of Be Better, Do Better commitments that we created last year in response to our desire to be an anti-racist organization. And he and I have partnered on this work as well. We share this with you to see if it might spark any ideas in your own organizations. But Ralph, I'll turn it over to you to speak about some of the specific work we've done of late.
Ralph, you're muted.
So let's try again.
There we go.
What I was saying is that I was laughing because I can't get over the long titles and how do you fit them on the business cards. But I guess we managed to do that, Lyle, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But you know, one of the things that I would say to you, you know, Kirsten and I, we come to you to talk a bit about the relationship that we have, and in some ways, I really feel as though it is somewhat unique because I've been in other organizations as the head of diversity, and I will tell you that I have never had a close relationship or a relationship as close as the one that I have now with Kirsten as the head of human resources. And she mentioned it and she said it's intentional. We truly do work together and we cover a lot of areas where we have tension, where there is some real push and shove in some areas, and I'll talk a bit about that. But fundamentally, we believe very strongly in the need for us to come together because we are interdependent. We cannot get this work done without engaging one another in a very significant way. And I would also say to you that we partnered in being supportive of pushing forward the idea that we needed to have diversity tied to business goals and the executive leadership team tying some percentage of their pay, their bonuses, to the achievement of our ambitions. And that was recently approved by our board. And so now about 10%, not about 10% of our bonus is tied to DEI progress. And I want you to know that that's significant because the board says 80% of the senior leadership compensation or bonuses, if you will, are tied to company performance, which only leaves 20% that's discretionary. And for the senior leadership to say, we'll take 10% of that remaining 20 and tie that into DEI, that is significant. That's fundamentally, I think, a very sound thing to do, but it's also a bold thing to do. And so that's one of the things that we did. And that would not have happened without the collaboration of Kirsten. I'm sure of that. And why do I say that? Because lots of times we're in different places in the organization. And, you know, she has been on the executive leadership team longer than I. And she comes with a level of, I think, not only confidence and competence, but she also is a person who is really seen as a leader in the organization. And therefore, she knows what she's talking about. And to be supportive of this work in that way is very credible. And it lends credibility to me in the work that I would do. Another thing that we did was we designed and launched this, it's called the Inclusive Leadership Program. And why this is important is because Kirsten was able to say to the people and organizational development team that I want you to work with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion in order to produce an inclusive leadership program that the top 120 executives in our organization are going to go through. It was an interesting project, and it has recently launched, and it's launched with a lot of positive reactions. But here's what's most important in all of this, and that is the senior leadership had to go through a version of that program to begin with because we needed to model the behaviors that we're now asking everyone else to, in fact, embrace as we move along. And so that program is one that we're very excited about. And the other thing that's also interesting is that, you know, we have ODI folks and P&OD folks coming together and recognizing that, gosh, we've got some overlay here in terms of the areas that we think we're responsible for. And for folks to come together and say, we are going to align in order to produce a very effective program, I think is a testimony to the fact that Kirsten and I do that on a regular basis. And I think the last thing that I would share with you, and this is something that's very, very recent, is that, and again, this comes through Kirsten's leadership. We've decided as an organization that Juneteenth would be a holiday for us here at Brown-Forman. And so that's the first new holiday in over 2 decades. And she brought that forward, and members of the ELT, and I'm a part of the ELT, approved it. That is substantial. It is a significant issue in our organization. And I guess, I said that was the last thing, but the very last thing that I would say to you is that when it comes to doing this work, what Kirsten did not mention is we also do something else. And that is we get together with one representative from legal, and we have a triad, we have a trio, and the three of us come together to discuss employee relations issues with regularity. We have a regular cadence, and that too enables us to get our work done. So we could tell you so much more, but this is at least some snippets of what happens when HR comes together with diversity in order to make things happen in an organization. Kirsten, I'll turn it back to you. Do you want to close out?
Sure. Thank you, Ralph. So again, if there is anything we can answer for you in the future about how to create a strong working relationship across HR teams and Office of Diversity and Inclusion teams, we would be happy to answer those. We do think that it has been a key to our success at Brown-Forman and something that we have invested in and done with great intention. Ralph and I both have experience of knowing these strong positive relationships don't always exist in organizations, which is why it's something we take time to nurture in ours. So with that, we are going to close our section and turn it back over to you, Lyle.
One last thing that we did decide, Lyle, we heard that you were pitching and you said, gosh, it would be nice if we can get to 20,000. Well, Kirsten and I, we agreed that we certainly are going to contribute 5,000 to your effort.
And Lyle, you're on mute if you are trying to say something as we turn it back over to you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. He's still on mute.
Wait, okay.
Boy,
you know what?
I've heard him be speechless.
Sometimes, yeah, I'm speechless. Sometimes you can hit that mute button 3 times and it just doesn't work, Thank you, guys. And Ralph and Kirsten, that's really fun that you guys are working together and you're making progress. That's great. And you're setting some great examples for other employers that are on the line here. And I think that's exactly what we were looking for. So we really appreciate you guys joining us. And unfortunately, the guy that was going to speak next is, you all know, Ray Daniels, super guy. He's president of the chamber over here, or the chair of the board of the chamber in Lexington, but he just had to hop off. He's in the middle of a board meeting with the University of Kentucky. And they apparently leaned out the door and said, come, we need you. So it's funny how these things go sometimes. Ashley, I'm getting ready to point towards you in just a second, Ashley Smith. But we also had somebody that was going to sing for us here, but he works in the mayor's office. And when there's an emergency of a certain kind in town, and he'll tell you about it if he gets back on here, he gets called and has to go. So during that last presentation, we had 2 little hiccups. So Ashley Smith, are you around?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, I'm so glad you're here. Ashley Smith is the co-founder of Black Soil in Kentucky. What a great organization. She serves as their COO and she oversees the daily operation. And why don't you tell us about Black Soil? And you got extra time because we had some people that have slipped off for a bit. So.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you all so much to Lyle, Trish, Dana, the entire organizing committee of Uplift Kentucky. I'm so honored and pleased to be here today. I see some familiar faces in the participants list. So hello to everyone out there. Thank you for the opportunity to share just a little bit, take up a little bit of your time to share with you about our mission and vision here with Black Soil Kentucky. We are a statewide organization with the mission of reconnecting Black Kentuckians to their heritage and legacy in agriculture. We've been around since August 2017, and we started this company focused on farm tours and farm to table dinners. And we first built a relationship with the Barber family located in Hart County, where 4 of the 7 siblings have returned to farming. And that family at one point in time were sharecroppers who now own their land and they purchased that land from the tenant farmer. Our COVID-19 pivot has really looked like being all throughout your media pieces, TV, newspapers, radio, really helping to reinforce our work through our CSA program, talk to you about our different partnerships, such as the great endeavors with Keeneland, App Harvest, the University of Kentucky, just to name a few. And really the reason why this business came about is really the question I pondered deeply and gravely was, if Mother Nature can't see who puts the seed in the ground, then why do we have such enormous disparities in agriculture? Here in Kentucky, out of the over 77,000 farmers, producers, farm owners and operators, about 1.4% of that population are Black farmers, representing less than 450. And those are statistics from 2017, the USDA Farm Census, actually. So we've been on the mission of really busting down the doors. So we are, you see, I'm sitting in the car right now. We're a part of Soul Feast Week. So for all our foodies and drink enthusiasts who want to celebrate Kentucky cultural and culinary heritage, we have a 10-day Black food and restaurant week where we'll feature off-menu items. And we will encourage you to come out to these restaurants. You can learn more at soulfeastweek.com and take part of building up economic development throughout our Black-owned restaurants, eateries. Each of these restaurants are encouraged to purchase one item, one ingredient from a Black-owned farm that is in Kentucky. So we're really wanting to emphasize that farm impact as well. We're Kentucky proud, and we're excited to really help get out the name and mission and really celebrate these farms that we work with. Soul Feast Week, we've got a seafood boil, we've got a bourbon history dinner where I see Andrea Merriweather, a local bourbon enthusiast and a historian, will help guide us through a lot of the poignant historical contributions of Black Kentuckians to our bourbon sector and industry. So I know I've got extra time, but I would love to, open it up if the organizers are willing to provide us with some dialogue. And I enjoy having conversations with audiences on calls like this. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to spend some time with our extra minutes, just kind of going back and forth in a conversation.
Right, Ashley, I'm looking for some comments. Somebody commented on Soul Feast Week. That's pretty cool. You know what? I had lunch yesterday down at Julietta Market.
Great. Where did you dine? Awesome. Tell me more about your experience.
Well, I was in that place up front where
Wilson.
Wilson, and had fresh tacos. It was great.
Wonderful.
I eat light these days, so I took one home and my wife snapped it up.
Well, that's good.
But, it's fun just to see all the booths that you have. I worked with the transportation, the Lextran, when they were in that building. It used to be a mess. That's where they repaired all the buses. But now it's quite beautiful. It's really a nice place. So I think it's cool the way you've transformed that. And I think it's just great the work you're doing all across the state to, help people succeed in farming. So.
Yes, thank you so much. So this time last week, we were celebrating our grand opening of our Ag Credit Food Demonstration Kitchen, which helps bring the Kentucky farm to your kitchen table. And then last Thursday, we were celebrating the announcement of our 4-year partnership with Farm Credit Mid-America, as well as a $200,000 donation to our cause, which will help us introduce almost 50 new farmers across the state, help get us into classrooms even further through grow kits and virtual learning modules. So we really appreciate, again, the opportunity to share about our work and how we've grown over the past 4 years. Thank you so much for your time.
Nice job and nice office there.
Thank you. It literally is my office. I'm at Goff's. We support local. We're at Goff's Tents and Events, loading up. We're doing a catering for UK athletics tomorrow. So we're on the move, and we hope to cater for one of your upcoming events soon.
All right, that's cool. And by the way, we just put in the chat box the link to donate to today's organization. So one click right there takes you to the Blue Gas Community Foundation page, and you can donate to one or all of these charities. 1, 2, 3 you can pick, or donate to all of them, which I think is a cool thing to do. And I know that some of that's already happened. For some reason, we thought this was all set up, but We thought we had a thermometer on there to tell us how we're doing, but it's not working right now. So Foundation's working on their thermometer. But Ashley, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Good luck with all your endeavors and keep up the good work. Okay.
Thanks. We'll see you next time. Have a great
You
day.
bet. Oh, yeah. Hey, we've got another really special guest. Some of you know Tal Green. She's the founder and president of Crank and Boom. But she's been active. She grew up in Frankfurt and Lexington. She's been active in the food market. In fact, she had a family restaurant, Thai Orchid Cafe. She used to have Smiling Thai actually as a kid over in Frankfurt, and it was the best Thai restaurant in the state. I mean, that was the total consensus. And then she started her own restaurant here in Lexington and did so well. And one day she needed a dessert. And she started playing with it. It's kind of funny. She actually took her husband to Bangkok, Thailand, so he could kind of see what her life was like. And by the way, while she was over there, we helped her get a job with Habitat for Humanity for a little while because she had done work for Habitat here in Lexington. And while her husband was there, he had some ice cream, and it was so good. So when she was thinking about dessert, he said, "Why don't you make some of that ice cream that you all had back home?" And well, that was the start of it. They started making ice cream, and they found that ice cream business was better than the restaurant business. So now they have 2 locations in Lexington. It's done great. Tao is an Asian community leader. She's a woman of great strength and insight, and she's going to share a few words with us. So, Ty, tell us what's on your mind.
Hi friends, Tal Green here. I'm the founder, owner, and operator of Crank and Boom Craft Ice Cream here in Lexington, Kentucky. And I'm so excited to be here and thrilled to be chatting with you about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Like many organizations and companies, last year and last summer had a true reckoning with a second pandemic that has been going on in our country, which is racial injustice. And we had to take a hard look at ourselves because up until then, I would say that we felt like we were pretty inclusive and that we always spread the message of social justice. But after taking a hard look in our own mirror to look at ourselves and what we were doing, saw that we were not doing enough and that we were not utilizing our platforms and our privilege to be able to amplify the voices and bring to light a lot of these issues that have been buried and not spoken of for so long. And it was really hard to go through that process and realize that what you thought you were doing an okay job at, you were really not doing that great a job at. And I made it a point to change what we were doing. I didn't necessarily have the answers, but I knew that there were people around me that I could find some answers and that we would just try different things and take different initiatives, not just to help our community, but to build our organization to be more inclusive and equitable and diverse, because we truly believe that the more people that we can bring into the fold that come from all sorts of different backgrounds, the better we are going to be as a society and also as an organization. One of the first initiatives that we took in this process was to look at our own hiring practices. We changed a whole lot of things to do that, and also changed our messaging in terms of our recruiting and hiring. Other initiatives that we took along the way was we created a t-shirt for charity for Black Lives Matter, and it said, "I see you, I hear you, I'm with you." The proceeds went to Black Male Working Academy here in Lexington, Kentucky. And if you don't know the folks over at BMW, they're awesome and they are doing tremendous work, and we're looking forward to a long-term partnership with them. We also became a distribution point for Black Lives Matter signs, which caused a whole lot of hubbub. We had the signs out at each location, and we also got a lot of negative feedback talking about the signs and how we were communists and this and that. And I would say with the amount of hate that came our way, I would actually share when something really terrible was said, because I wanted people to understand that us going through this process is not clean. It is a messy thing, because it is not, anytime there is change, it is not a perfect path. And I wanted people to understand, and I shared this on social media. I shared in our stories on Instagram. I shared in different videos that I talked about that this is the fallout, and this is the negative feedback that we've gotten because of this initiative that we are taking. And when I would get, say, if it was one negative comment that I would post, I would get a flood of positive reinforcing comments that said, "We love what you're doing. Thank you for standing up for these values. Thank you for standing up for justice." And you know, our customers and our community, they support these same values. So if anything, us standing up for these causes cause our base to mobilize and feel even stronger about what we were doing. So for every, you know, ice cream that someone did not get, hopefully there was someone else that would get maybe more. But that aside, I just felt like this is what we have to speak about. This is what we have to do as an organization. And nothing is going to change unless we as business leaders step into a space that feels bold and also feels brave, so that we can create a path for other people to be bold and brave at the same time. One of the other major initiatives that we did was create a flavor called Kamala Pecan. And this was leading up to the election as well as right for Inauguration Day, celebrating, especially for me as a woman of color, another woman of color who is now been elected to the White House. And that has never happened before. And for someone like me, seeing someone in that space and knowing, you know, someone is there doing it, that my child can see that that is possible now. And it was really exciting for me, for my community, and for many, many others. And we wanted to create a flavor that was going to celebrate that. Well, that got a whole lot of bad feedback. There were a lot of people unhappy about it because it automatically, naturally became a political issue. And we got a lot of really bad feedback. But I knew in my heart that I was standing up for something that I was very excited about. And I knew there were a lot of other people excited about. So, you know, we took the comments as they were. You know, I'm sure people decided to get their ice cream elsewhere, but ultimately that's where we stood. That's what we felt strongly about. We are using our many platforms to express this, and this is how we build our own community. So all of this is well and good, and I was really excited about how this built a conversation, it built a community, and it also built us a organization that was more diverse, more inclusive, and we were intentional about different things that we were doing. But I think so much of us talking about this in social media, not just one time or for Pride Month or for Asian Heritage Month, not just for, you know, whatever group of the month, but as a ongoing conversation, using that made those who were thinking about coming to work with us, made them feel like we were a space that were inclusive and open and safe for them to work in. So just to share a few numbers, as a result of all of these initiatives that we have done in the last year, our overall company now, in terms of people of color, is at 23%. Our leadership is at 37%. Our LGBTQIA community within our company is at 20%. Leadership is at 19%. And our revenue overall has increased by double digits. So I think if you look at raw numbers, it feels like a really good space, but I know that we have a whole lot of work ahead of us, and we know that there's a lot more to do and a lot more fight, and that's what we're here for. So I hope at least this little snippet of our journey will inspire you to be brave and be bold and to do whatever you can to build a more just and a more beautiful world. So thank you for having me. If you have questions, my email is toa@crankandboom.com. You can check us out at crankandboom.com and come get some ice cream.
Hey, I wish she could just, I asked her if she could just fax it to all of us. Wouldn't that be nice if you could just like reach behind your computer and there'd be some ice cream? I think we need to move towards that. Hey, that was great. And Brad Patrick, I think you've got somebody you want to introduce us. What else has wandered into our mix?
I do want to talk about it. I also want to figure out what a fax machine is. I don't know what that is, Lyle. So if you know what that is, I would gladly download some ice cream. But anyway, but no, we're excited. You know, one of the big topics in the news today is the difficulty in hiring, and what it takes to make that work, and to not sit and complain about the process, but actually get a smart group of people to go run and do it. John Coffey is our Director of Talent Acquisition for the HRG. He has over 16 years of experience in recruiting. I love working with him because I can wave my arms and promise stuff, but John actually delivers. So his team has hired over 50 people a month. And he's also a speaker about DEI, and he most recently spoke in a New Orleans SHRM chapter meeting. And later this year, he'll be traveling up to Alaska to also talk about the subject there. So let me turn it over to John Coffey and hear some words about some best practices in recruiting.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, even in Alaska, they need some education. So, so hi guys. What a great bunch of speakers to follow here. You know, I'll just kind of step in and say that with diversity in recruiting, the number one question I get is, where do I start, or how do I start? It's a daunting task. We work with a lot of different companies, and no matter the size of the organization, really the truth is that creating a diverse workplace culture that is inclusive of all of its employees is not just an isolated effort. You can't quickly check it off your to-do list. It has to be really a married effort between leadership, managers, HR, and most importantly, your employees. So diversity and inclusion, when we talk about recruiting, it's a little bit more complex than, hey, let's start a to-do list, but it's okay. We got to start somewhere. So what I find it's often interchangeably used is diversity and inclusion, but they vary in ways and significant to their value. Diversity is about quantity, where inclusion is about quality. And a real DE&I program is a union between your diversity goals and the resulting inclusive culture. So the takeaway that I want to leave you with you guys is that recruiting the right ways will help make you a better impact on your overall D&I goals. Being vigilant and aligning your diversity recruiting strategy to your culture is very important, ultimately assuring the strategy that you're putting in place and effectively fueling those diversity goals that you're wanting to set organizationally. And I just want to leave you with something. Toa actually spoke to this, how diversity has helped impact profitability in your business. Did you know that companies that have a more diverse workforce are 1.5 to 2 times more profitable? So if anything, you've got some bottom line things to consider here. So I'm going to leave you just with a quick overview of 5 steps that I take with companies when I walk them through how to make them better at diversity recruiting. And it doesn't have to be complicated. The first step is just really auditing their process, knowing where to start. How do we pick up the pieces from a program that you might have today? Is it working? Is it not? And then how do we create one? The second step that I go through then is just picking one simple metric to really improve the hiring strategy for a company. Too often companies and HR departments get caught up in the mechanics of this complex metric evaluation. Simplifying the goal, building on them, and focusing on the important objective will allow you to deliver quickly. Step 3 would be enhancing the diversity source strategy to begin with, rewording job postings, showcasing your workplace diversity, getting those testimonials. Now, not everybody wants to be the Jackie Robinson of the company. I get that, but getting the message out that this is a employer of choice, getting good testimonials, it's a start. Offering workplace flexibility, very important. Referral programs, also very important. Step 4 is promoting inclusiveness in your screening process. So how do you take bias out of your process? If you haven't looked at your process and said, is there bias in it? You've already done the wrong thing. Pre-hire assessments, blind hiring, diversified slate in the interview panel, qualification review. There's a lot of different tools that you can use to make sure that you are judging apples against apples and that you're not already knocking people out before they get to your door. And then finally, the last one, but probably the most critical one that companies fail on, is measuring success and striving for continued improvement. You know, guys, we recruit for a lot of different organizations and a lot of different fields, and it all comes back to reevaluation. Is it working? Is it not working? And then let's make it better, right? So that's all I got.
All right, John, thanks very much. We appreciate it. Good work. We got the next speaker. What a blast. Latoya Mayo. Do you all know her? She's an attorney. She's with Littler Mendelson. She is so good. She's on the speakers panel across the state. I've introduced her the past 5 or 6 years at the Kentucky Chamber and Chamber's annual legal update. Latoya, hi. How you doing?
Hi, Lyle. How everyone? Can you all hear me?
We can, loud and clear. I love your outfit and your backdrop and your celebrate Pride Month and all that stuff. You're looking great. Tell us what's going on.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. I've had a pleasure of listening to everyone present this afternoon. And I normally, when I present, I have a big PowerPoint and I'm looking at training this group, but this group gets it. So I don't think we need to train or further educate about DE&I and efforts and why they're important. I want to spend some time just focusing on what we're doing within Littler Mendelson, which is a labor and employment national boutique firm within our own rights, to make sure that we're retaining our talent and really bringing together diverse backgrounds for better solutions, practicing basically what we preach that our employers and organizations should be doing within their respective organization. Here at Littler, diversity is a fundamental part of who we are and a core principle of what we live by every day. We believe that a culture that prioritizes inclusivity leads to better outcomes for both us and our clients. And it's why we continue to instill an atmosphere of collaboration in everything we do. One of our biggest assets, as we know, is our people. So we take a lot of great time and value with strategic methods of making sure we're doing all that we can do to retain our talent. We evaluate them through mentoring initiatives like our award-winning career advocacy program, which pairs rising females and ethnically diverse associates with shareholder, AKA advocates, and client champions who encourages them along their career growth. Over the past 3 years, prodigies have represented 18 to 40% of the firm's new shareholder class each year. We support and empower them through our affinity groups, and we have developed one for African Americans, BOLO, which I co-chair. We have a Pride Affinity group, which is our LGBTQ group. We have an Asian Pacific American affinity group called AHANA, and a Hispanic affinity group called Rayuyan, as well as a Women's Leadership Initiative group. And this commitment has paid off. Our diversity initiatives have won multiple awards from a wide range of industries and organizations, as well as our national clients like Allstate, Nationwide, Starbucks, and the Coca-Cola Company. But beyond receiving recognition, this is not what we do, the reason why we do it. Our inclusion efforts have also strengthened our firm. They've strengthened our ability to retain our talent and also to produce the best results for our client. Because with a wider range of perspectives and experiences, our team can be stronger, smarter, and deliver better solutions for our business. In the wake of the racial injustice issues and all this social unrest we saw last year, Littler took a moment to step back and reevaluate. It's easy to say, oh, we've done all this, we've gotten all these awards, but at the same time, we all know we can do better. And so we took that time to look at ways in which, despite everything that I've just discussed, discovering additional ways in which we could do better. As a result of that, the firm joined with organizations such as Out Leadership and the Human Rights Campaign to ensure equal treatment of our members of the LGBTQ community and continue to support the American Bar Association's Resolution 113, which asks law firms to complete its model diversity survey to help law firms and clients analyze the roles of minorities, women, LGBTQ, and disabled lawyers in the law firms and on their client matters. Additionally, Littler and its attorneys are involved in and support numerous diverse organizations across the world. We also contributed a wide range of donations to these various groups across the world, including the California Minority Council Program, Chart Your Own Course, Corporate Council of Women of Color, Direct Women, Diversity Lab, the Hispanic National Bar Association, the Minority Corporate Council Association, the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association, and a wide host of others. Through our affinity groups, we have also provided support and development and networking opportunities among our various minority groups, as well as performing a mentorship program, a formal mentorship programs that help guide these individuals through their respective endeavors and hopefully support career growth within the firm. Talking a little bit about the numbers here, we currently have 29% of our associates are of color, 61% of our associates are women, and 5% of our associates identify as belonging to the LGBTQ group. With respect to our shareholders, we have 15% of shareholders that identify as being of color, 37% identify as women, and 5% identify as members of the LGBTQ community. Across the board, looking at all of our employees, including staff as well as attorneys, we have 25% that identify of color and over about 60% that are identified as women. And beyond looking at the numbers, when you look at the rank and file within Littler, over 50% of our offices are managed by women. Over 50% of our board of directors are managed by women, include women and also people of color. So we're not all also about the talk, but we're also about the walk. We understand that, as others have alluded to in their various presentations, that diversity and equity and inclusion starts from the top, and that message has to be permeated from the top all the way down to the bottom. It also, we understand through Tal's presentation that there are some challenges in creating culturals and equities and inclusion. These challenges include the own baggage that our own human behaviors bring to the table. There include stereotypes, biases, misplaced intentions, educational peer influences, as well as media influences, family influences, and our own personal experiences that tend to impact our view and our understanding of others and how we operate within an organization. I believe that the key to moving D&I programming forward are just 10 internal keys I like to consider, and I would like to leave with the group. You know, first and foremost, we have to foster an environment of openness and inclusion. We have to recognize the benefit of diversity. We have to diversify the executive suite and the boardroom. We have to eliminate obstacles from biases that we all have to problematic systems or inflexible barriers. We have to get our managers or our people on the floor, our boots on the ground on board through training and education, while at the same time eliminating fear. We have to utilize diversity as part of all of our decision-making tools at every level within the organization. We have to mentor and develop our talent within, and we have to focus on intentional plans of retention beyond recruiting by understanding the differences between others and adding that diversity and pioneering diversity that champions appreciation for those differences. We also have to measure the numbers, also known as successfully traversing the land of our legal demons. Data analytics work. We never know how we're doing if we're not going back and studying. And we have to get credit for what we do. You know, when we have people challenge and champion in these efforts, we have to be sure that we give them credit and making sure that they feel comfortable in the space that we've provided within our organization to continue those champion efforts. Beyond our internal things to consider, there's things that we should externally consider as well. Expanding the breadth of our recruiting, convincing all candidates that we are about D&I and inclusive efforts, broadening the pool of candidates, and fostering both a public perception and a private perception among our clients of openness and inclusion. And we have to connect with the community. One of the reasons why I was so excited to be invited and be included in this presentation. And finally, we have to expand our reputation using our social media tools that are available that we find ourselves so inundated with each and every day. And at that point, I'll wrap up my presentation because I've at my time. Thank you again, Lau, for having me here today and allowing me the opportunity to present.
Man, you're good. You are right on time. Way to go. You know, I love working with you. And what good advice. I think people are going to want to go play that tape back, get all those different ideas, because they're great. Thank you so much for being with us. And,
One thing I didn't say, one of the things that we do at Littler as part of our affinity group efforts, we develop these virtual backgrounds. So we have a host of backgrounds that we allow our members to use at their convenience when working remotely in this remote atmosphere. So we have a bunch of these. I love playing them. I'll have Juneteenth up tomorrow, but that's also another welcome too that we tends to foster openness and inclusiveness around the firm.
that's great. You see, I have my own background, and I should sit over like this, because you see this, there's actually a person down there looking down this path towards the light. And that's what we're doing today. And that's what we're doing whenever I host these things, is we're all moving towards a brighter spot. But when my wife says, no, sit in the middle, well, then it looks like I have horns on. So, but so I think yours is better than mine. All right. You have a great day. Man,
Thank you.
man. I think we've got, I think Andrea may have a special guest for us. Andrea, you still out there? Andrea Merriweather. I think maybe Colleen Eldridge is here to talk to us. Coach Colleen, they call her. I tell you what, I'll just go right ahead and introduce her. She's the owner of a coaching firm, Be More Consulting. And she speaks all across the area about training and development, and she's going to point out some of the things people try that haven't worked so well, some of the difficulties, because listen, we don't all get it right the first time when we're trying new stuff, and we're all trying a lot of new stuff. So Colleen, what's on your mind?
Hi there, I am Coach Colleen, and I'm so excited to talk to you about the top 3 mistakes organizations are making in their DEI work. Let's just dive in. The first one is making DEI just an HR thing. Now, I'm an HR girl myself, so I know the magical powers that lie in the HR offices in your organizations. They can do anything and make things happen. But the brunt of this work shouldn't just fall on their office. It's about so much more than just your policies and hiring. And the sooner that you start to create an organizational awareness of DEI being integrated into all aspects of the company, the better. Yes, HR has a huge role in setting the stage, but the entire organization has to be aligned with creating the culture that values DEI. What does this look like on the management level? What does this look like on the individual contributor level? How is this incorporated into annual reviews? The organizations who are most successful in DEI have a full all hands approach to their initiatives, and they are aligned with business goals and initiatives as well. It doesn't just live in HR. The CEO is talking about it. It's infused into meetings, and it's part of the vocabulary and culture. Now, the second biggest mistake that I see organizations making is not getting data and insights from their current employee base. So many times, organizations tend to look outside of themselves for answers. They look at what other organizations are doing, and they want to copy and paste it into their own organization. Now, the problem is that every organization is different. What works for one might not work for another, and taking a one-size-fits-all approach can cause more harm than good. The best insights are already within your organization. Utilize the employees that you have to get data and insight on culture and hiring and inclusion and opportunities for improvement. See what your current employees have to say and see where the gaps are. Use that information to create a plan that helps you truly become an inclusive organization. Now, I'm not saying that there is not a need for outside input. Hello, I am a consultant, but make sure that you are willing and able to hear from both perspectives. And lastly, number 3 is focusing on diversity before inclusion. This is the one that I'm actually most passionate about because this is probably the biggest mistake that I see organizations make. So many organizations have all their focus on what their company looks like in terms of visual diversity. Now, this is an important thing to note, but it's so much more than just that. And in the wake of George Floyd, I saw so many organizations rush to hire more diverse employees. And the problem was they weren't ready, like at all, they weren't ready. Diversity is about the differences that people bring, and inclusion is about making sure a culture is created that harnesses those differences and brings the best out of each and every individual. Now, I always say diversity without inclusion is a recipe for disaster. So take a good hard look at how your organization feels right now. I define inclusion as a state of feeling valued, respected, and supported. That's the baseline for an inclusive organization. And here's the thing. If underrepresented minorities and women and others of diverse backgrounds and experiences aren't successful within your company, it's useless to keep addressing the pipeline. No matter how much you focus on recruitment, the candidates you hire probably won't stay long. And instead, consider the root cause. Why is this happening? And how can you address it within your culture to retain and develop top talent? Once inclusive foundations are in place, then you're ready to focus on the pipeline. The other thing is you should be focusing on other aspects of inclusion as well that are meaningful and can serve as an extension of the culture you're creating. Think about concepts like mutual respect, rewards and recognition, social celebrations, and acknowledgement of special days that reflect heritage and social good initiatives focused on the needs of a diverse group of people within your organization. By showing that you truly value and are making efforts towards promoting diversity and inclusion, everyone within your organization wins. So those are my top three. Where do you think your organization needs to focus when it comes to building a more diverse and inclusive organization? As I said at the beginning, my name is Coach Colleen. I am the owner of Be More Consulting. And if there is ever anything I can do to help your organization in the fields of diversity or leadership development, I would love to be of service. Hope you're having a great day and enjoying your time at Uplift, Kentucky.
Thank you, Coach Colleen. Appreciate it. And that's interesting stuff that we can learn from. Way to go. Hey, we've got a special artist on next here. Dr. Richard Taylor is a Kentucky writer, former Kentucky laureate. He is an author of a whole bunch of books, particularly on history. He teaches at Transylvania University and just a really outstanding guy. And he's going to share a little poetry with us. Dr. Taylor, are you there?
I'm there. Thank you, Mark. I'm honored, first of all, to be asked to say a few words as a Kentucky writer. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, the theme of it is a major thrust at Transylvania, where I teach. A recognition of the changing demographics in our country and the need for greater social and racial justice. My commitment's also personal. I taught over 30 years at a historically Black institution and know well the need for positive change as well as the power of learning. I believe the most effective means to uplift all Kentuckians is through education, starting with universal pre-K education and support for individuals to attend at least 2 years of community college. Another means of uplifting Kentuckians in DEI is through teaching civics in every high school classroom, such as I had way back in the dark ages at Atherton High School in Louisville. How to make and assess an argument, weigh facts, and gives all of us the means to weigh truth through critical thinking. We're talking about not just acting proactively, but changing a lot of entrenched attitudes. Change will be incremental and not as rapid as any of us would like, resting as much as anything else on a change in generations. Democracy, we all know, rests on an informed and discerning public. Here we have much room in this state for improvement. I want to close these just very brief remarks with a poem written nearly 100 years ago by an African-American poet named Countee Cullen, who was active during the Harlem Renaissance in the 20s. It's a reminder to all of us that our attitudes and actions of prejudice have consequences, not just on victims, but on the enablers and actors themselves. Incident by Countee Cullen. Once riding in old Baltimore, heart-filled, head-filled with glee, I saw a Baltimorean kept looking straight at me. Now I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger, and so I smiled, but he poked out his tongue and called me the N-word. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until December. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. To make less of others should cause us to feel a collective shame, as well as a resolve to change ourselves and others. Let's all work toward the society that our best instincts and ideals embody, one in which everyone is judged on content of character and not gender, sexual orientation, or the color of their skin. The arts are an instrument of forecasting change as well as stimulating it. The poet W.H. Auden said, "We must love one another or die." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. And that was really informative and, causes us to think. Hey, we have some exciting other speakers coming on. I'm hoping Kimberly Bunton is with us. Kimberly, you're out there? Maybe not. Well, in that case, I think Brad Patrick, you've got some people to introduce, don't you? Up, get your you're muted right now.
No, I know. That's my new nickname, You're muted. No, what I was saying is, how when people come talk to us all the time about how complex and confusing compensation is? You've heard that conversation, right, Lyle?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
We've got a person that we work with that straightens it all out for us and makes a lot of great sense. So we're going to be joined by Andrea Bevan and the person that kind of keeps the engine running there at the HRG, Kendra Bryant. So let me turn it over to them.
Thanks, Brad, and thank you so much for everyone who's joined us here today. I think this is a very exciting event. So at HRG, again, compensation is pretty complexing, not just in the HR world, but we have executives that reach out to us all the time that are looking for pay equity studies. So what exactly is pay equity? And it just means compensating employees for the same when they perform similar job duties, accounting for factors like their experience, their job performance, their tenure with that particular association or employer. And we're seeing an explosion in the market right now of new equal pay laws that aren't just necessarily at the federal level, but at the state legislature level as well. And these state laws provide even more protection than what the Federal Equal Pay Act would require. In many cases, it's not necessarily just paying for equal work, but substantially similar work. And many states have expanded their fair pay laws to include not just gender, but also race or other protected characteristics. So consistent with the Me Too movement, nearly all state laws mandate greater transparency in the workplace and protect employees from retaliation when they attempt to correct pay disparities. Some states also protect employees from retaliation when they openly discuss their pay with coworkers. So what exactly should pay equity matter to employees? And it's really just ensuring employees are paid equitably. Employees increase efficiency. Employees are more creative. They're more productive. And it goes back to the attraction and retention that John talked about earlier. In order to attract the best employees and in order to attract a diverse population, you need to make sure that everyone's paid equally and fairly for that work. It reduces turnover and also increases commitment to the organization. So HRG, we provide pay equity studies and really take a look not just necessarily at pay equity, but all compensation all the time. And I'm going to kick it off to Andrea to talk a little bit about what that looks like and how employers can promote pay equity.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we work with our clients all the time, not only with pay equity, but just generally good compensation standards. And one thing you want to consider with a compensation program is to really look at transparency and how transparent you want to be with your compensation systems, and make sure you have objective metrics around performance advancement and then how that impacts compensation to ensure consistency. And in line with that, then also communication to your employees and to your managers to make sure that they understand those metrics, and as well as what it takes to progress within the organization. And the more they know and the more they understand and the more consistent you are around that, the more employees will understand that they are being paid fair and equitably. Another thing that's very important is to train your managers on the compensation system so that they can make the right and proper decisions, and obviously then to document those decisions. And then on top of that, just a good compensation system with standard pay ranges or some guidelines so that you know what the equal and the equity is among the jobs, so that you know that within the same job classification, what the range of pay would be and how each of your employees fall into that range of pay and why. And then finally, knowing and understanding what each person does. So keep your job descriptions up to date. And then it's very easy then to see, this is the work you're doing, this is what we pay, this is how we make the pay decisions around each individual.
Thank you, Andrea and Kendra. Good work. Appreciate you all sharing that stuff. You know what? We have a very special speaker next, John Petrov. I don't know if you all know him. He was Senior VP of HR or CHRO at St. Joe, and now he's doing something similar up north, but he hangs around in Kentucky because he likes us. Over 17 years in HR and just a super guy. And he's going to talk to us about LGBTQ+ challenges today. And John, we appreciate, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me, Lyle? Excellent.
So glad you're with us. Good to see you.
Glad to be here. It's my honor and privilege to be here with you all. And I'm going to provide some background on Pride Month and some history here. There's a little logo there, Love is Love. Within the community, we promote that. I'm very proud to share with everybody. I'm out and proud. I'm a gay male. And let's move forward to the next slide here. So the LGBTQ community is a group of people who have different sexualities or gender identities. And LGBTQ+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, and others within the community. And it's evolving. Let's go to the next slide. So what is Pride Month and why do we have it? And some of you may know this, and some this may be new or even a surprise. But Pride Month is to celebrate diversity and those who are LGBTQ and plus community, and it helps those in our community to feel appreciated. And as we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, people of all different backgrounds and persuasions make up the LGBTQ plus community. You can be African American, white, Hispanic, Asian, disabled, male, female, gender neutral. There's a lot of diversity within LGBTQ plus. Next slide, please. And why is Pride Month in June? From a historical perspective, June was chosen for Pride Month to remember the Stonewall riots. If you remember, Stonewall was a bar in Manhattan, and it happened at the end of June 1969 when this riot occurred. And it's why many Pride events are being held during this month to recognize the mark of LGBTQ plus people that have had in the world. Next slide. What were the Stonewall riots? They were violent protests by members of the LGBTQ plus community against a police raid that took place in the early morning of June 28th, 1969 at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. And the riots took place because in the 1950s and 1960s, police were targeting LGBTQ plus clubs and bars. Many of my sisters and brothers and other family members were beaten, arrested, oftentimes just for being gay, lesbian, or what have you, transgender. And it was a very difficult time for us, and we still have a lot of work ahead of us, although much progress has been made in our society and around the world over the years. Next slide. How can we all support the LGBTQ plus community? Be aware that not everyone is comfortable with their own identity. You may have a sister, brother, child, grandchild, what have you, that may be questioning their own identity and not yet sure of where they stand or who they are or who they want to become, or they may not even be comfortable in their shoes. So it's important that we should support them in their quest to find who they are. Don't mock or make fun of people just because they are different. And I think this spans across all aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Be aware that people around you may be part of a community, or within my group, we often refer to one another as family. And be a friend, be supportive. And I guess the one ultimate thing I would say is if you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. And Lyle, next slide, we'll just go into some pronouns, some additional education. Sometimes people will go by different pronouns, and you should respect that. If someone asks you to call them as she or her when speaking, do so. If they ask you to refer to them as he or him when speaking, please do so. The same goes for many other pronouns such as they, them, it, its, and also sie, them, and zir, which are more gender neutral pronouns. So a lot of evolution going on in this area. And then my final slide, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but that's a quick and dirty overview of LGBTQ plus and why we have Pride Month and the history with the Stonewall Inn riot.
Wow, John, that is fascinating, and I appreciate the education. Like I see a lot of people in their offices or even on their business cards have the pronouns listed, multiple pronouns. And what kind of got that started?
You know, part of it is with gender identity, right? And individuals who may associate you maybe at birth a male, but as you grow up and you come into your own situation and your comfort zone, you may identify as being female, right? So you would have that pronoun, that identification. I happen to know you, Lyle, so you are a cis male, you're a straight male, you're married to your wife. So you too can identify as such, and we respect that. It helps to open up a bridge and some commonality between the differences that we have. And we talked about diversity being about differences and inclusion about uplifting and celebrating. And I also believe bringing those differences together where we find commonality and we find harmony in a collaborative way as a group of individuals, especially in the workplace as it relates to teamwork and collaboration and performing at a high level to provide the best possible support and service to one another, our customers, our communities, because it takes everybody, it takes a village, right?
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much. And be sure you check out the chat because I noticed several people sent you some nice notes.
Will do. And thank you.
You bet.
Thank you so much for having me, Lyle.
Hey, it's a pleasure. And you know what? We've got two guests next. And I don't know if you all know Lisa Higgins-Hord. What a talented young lady. Works for the University of Kentucky, Assistant Vice President of Community Engagement at UK. But also Dr. Tiffany Daniels is here. She's the owner of a chiropractic care for Lexington. And you know what? They put their heads together and they've started something with the Bluegrass Community Foundation called Lexington Black Prosperity Initiative. And I want them to tell you about it. And it's one of the things you can donate to. So don't forget, we put out there in the chat box the link to go on and make some donations. So let's do that while these folks are talking. Lisa and Tiffany, are you guys with us?
Lyle, I'm actually here, and most of the families will appreciate this. Tiffany is en route because she had to take her son to a football practice. So she got stuck in traffic and is on her way back to the office and is having palpitations on her heart, but she's trying to get there. So if we could actually keep this, maybe come back to us in maybe another 5 minutes. She did text me. She says, I'm 5 minutes away. And I said, so most people here can identify with this when you have families. So if we could hold off on us in just a little bit, I would love to have her as a part of the conversation.
All right. You know what? Let's just ask Katie Graycheck if she's here. I know she texted me a minute ago. Katie, Senior Director of HR at KIMI.
Hi, Lyle. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me to join you as the leading workers' compensation carrier in Kentucky. And I believe we're the best. Thank you for the business that you provide to us. If we are fortunate to hold your policy, I want to share with you some of the techniques and tools that we utilize to uplift our employees that have disabilities and provide an inclusive environment for those employees. Similar to the support we offer you as a policyholder in providing services and support to your injured workers that are your employees. I'm sorry, Lyle, did you have something to share?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, you have 22,000 companies that you represent. We happen to be one of them. And I quit leaning back in my chair a minute ago because I always get scolded by people. Don't hurt yourself at work. So take it away, Katie. I love some of the things you all are doing. Tell us about it. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Lyle. So one of those topics is ergonomic chairs. We make certain every employee has an ergonomic chair. We do ergonomic evaluations on every employee. We provide ergonomic desks that are ADA compliant, that are adjustable, as well as working standing desk if needed. But we also do other things like provide TTD equipment for those employees that are deaf, and we provide adaptive keyboards, those simple things that help people that have physical disabilities typing at a computer all day. So those are easy accommodations, and we're happy to support our employees in that regard. We also support our employees in a financial way and through our benefits, simple things such as providing hearing aid coverage on our health plan. Hearing aids are typically excluded, and we know that's important to our employees, so we make certain those are included. We're in the midst of a mental health crisis as a result of the pandemic, right? Our employees and family members can't get in to see providers. There's a huge wait list for children, teens, elders to get in for mental health services. So we're expanding our mental health plan services to offer teledoc options, so you can call a mental health provider and not have to wait to get into a physical provider. So those are the simple things that we're doing in regards to our disability and inclusion efforts for those employees and family members. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the initiatives that we've taken on in the last year. We as a company have not been good or have talked at all about social issues, injustices, whether it's race, sex, gender, anything in those lines because we're a conservative insurance company, typically in a conservative industry. So our CEO stepped up and stepped out and said, look, we're going to have these hard, difficult conversations, and we're going to keep the conversations going. In fact, we've included diversity, equity, inclusion in our strategy starting in 2021 and going into the future. So it's a key element of who we are. These conversations are difficult, but we are committed to having those. We formed a volunteer committee last year to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion issues that were important to them. They are champions for our cause internally and promoting community efforts as well. We have allowed anyone that wanted to be a part of that to be part of the program. And at this point, we have over 10% of our employees, from the CEO to the entry line workers, that are part of our diversity, equity, inclusion committee. They are tasked to provide ongoing educations on a monthly basis to our employees via the intranet. So whether it's education and awareness or just highlights of employees. This year, so far, just in 2021, we've had highlights and spotlight features on various disabilities, such as Mental Health Awareness Month, National Disability Awareness Month, Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. In fact, we have an employee that stepped up that's got CP, and she wanted to share her story. So we had a video interview on our intranet, and our intranet site is interactive, so we can engage employees to talk about their life experiences, and we can offer an inclusive environment for people to share and respond. Those are some of the issues that are facing KIMI today and how we're reacting to those issues. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is Juneteenth. We recognized 2 years ago that it was important, so we gave the afternoon off to employees. We did that last year as well. And last year, I actually went to our board of directors and had their full support to include it as an official KIMI holiday. So this Friday, we are indeed closed, and I'm proud to support that effort. We know it's important to employees and it's important to KIMI. And so we are walking the talk in that regard. And the last thing I'd like to share with you, we have a lot of people in education here, and I am pleased to announce that KIMI and Eastern Kentucky University have created a scholarship program, and it is launching, and we are taking applications through Eastern Kentucky University at this point. We know insurance industry is typically male, Caucasian dominated. And when our CEO goes to conferences and meetings, people look like him. And so we're going to do our part to expand the insurance industry to bring racially and ethnically diverse individuals into the organization by way of scholarships through Eastern Kentucky University's Risk Management and Insurance Program. So we are offering a $15,000 scholarship, renewable up to 4 years, totaling $60,000 to a student that's a resident of Kentucky that maintains a 2.5 GPA and has great leadership in community efforts and wants to be a part of the insurance industry. So if you're interested in knowing more, please contact me or have people you know apply online through Eastern Kentucky University's SLATE program. So we're starting with 1 scholarship this year, and we're hoping to expand that 1 by each year. So thank you, Lyle, and I hope some of you have received some tidbits that you can put into place and help your efforts with DEI.
Wow, what a great example you guys are. That's really cool, Katie. The scholarship program, that's fantastic. And I love your committee and that you've got so many people on it and it's generating good ideas for you. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lyle. And I forgot to tell you, KIMI is proud to send you a donation. The check is in the mail.
Oh, right. Do you want to say what it is? How much it is?
We are able to donate $500 to the cause.
All right. Thank you very much. I haven't been saying much about that, but thank you so much. We've gotten some other ones. We really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Tell John hi. You
I
bet.
will.
And guess who joined the call? Tiffany Daniels. Please stand up. I understand you're here. And Lisa, have you all connected? What do you think? Do you all want to speak together?
Yes, we can do that. I'm glad that Dr. Daniels was able to join us. As I said, she was trying to get her son to football practice. So she's like everybody else. We're always trying to juggle things around, and we just sometimes have to give each other a little bit of a break.
You know, I just tell the group, her husband is going to speak also, but he's in the UK board meeting. So he had to step out to go to the board meeting, but I think he's supposed to be back pretty soon here. We're watching for him to join us. So he may come in and bump you, Dr. Daniels. So you guys take it away. Tell us about this organization you started, because I think it really can make a difference.
Well, Lyle, we want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity today to come and speak to everyone. As you had talked about before, myself and Dr. Tiffany Daniels are the co-chairs of the Lexington Black Prosperity Initiative. And that is an equity fund that is being held at the Bluegrass Community Foundation. And how that got started is that it started through a resolution. On my way out as a board member for the Bluegrass Community Foundation, they had a resolution that they wanted to do something because of what was happening in our community and what they saw happening on the national level. So what we decided to do was look at how we could deepen our ties into our community, and particularly look at African-American families, look at generational wealth building, also look at other opportunities to highlight and see what we could do with our Black families. And so our mission is to advance racial equity and address anti-Black racism within the Bluegrass. And we feel the most effective way to do this is through tangible actions and also sustainable programming. And we want to bring awareness to some of the most pressing problems and issues that are in our community that are affecting Black people. And we want to also bring funding through innovative ideas to address them, so that we're not just specifically funding programs that are already there, but how can we take it to a 2.0 and address the issues that are going on in our community so that we can have a more equitable and more balanced community that we live in. So right now, Dr. Daniels is going to tell you a little bit more about the types of programs that we have funded, so that kind of gives you an understanding. But I do want to let you know that it is an honor for us to serve as being, or at least it is for me, to serve as being a founding member, because it was created through Bluegrass Community Foundation, and it's something that's going to be sustainable. And that was very important for us, because this is not something that you can do unless it has some sustainability and as well as funding behind it.
Cool.
I am very honored to be a part as well, Lisa. So that was fun for you to say that. But thanks again for having us. I'm just going to talk about some things that we've done so far in the community. Our very first launch project was called the Grassroots Leadership Awards. And what we did was we recognized individuals who are on the front lines leading the work of addressing racial equity disparities in the Black community and social injustice across Lexington, Fayette County. So they each received an unrestricted stipend of $2,500 in recognition of their grassroots efforts. And those were 9 awardees for that. So I was very, very effective, because it was something that I don't think it had ever been done before in Fayette County, and the awardees were overwhelmed. I mean, they were so excited about it, and we were very excited and hope to do that again later in the year. The next project was called Racial Healing Circles, and our first beneficiary was Dr. Candace Hargons, who's the Executive Director of Center for Healing Racial Trauma. And we partnered with Toyota in this venture. And this project was a 6-week virtual session of one group of men, one group of women. And the group of men were their specific topic was healing while Black. And the group of women, their actual specific topic was surrendering the superpower syndrome. And they actually learned strategies for coping, healing, and resistance. And that's another project that we'd like to do another round of, because the actual participants really enjoyed it, and it was very effective. And it was actually another way, a great way to introduce counseling into the Black community, because sometimes that's frowned upon in the Black community. And Lisa, if I forget something, please chime in. Our most recent project was called, we actually gave prosperity backpacks, 100 prosperity backpacks to middle school African Americans. And this actual project was partnered with one of our grassroots leaderships awardees, Divine Karama. And we actually we call them prosperity backpacks. And we gave them backpacks that had science kits, goggles, lab coats, and also included activities that were STEM activities that were from various colleges of University of Kentucky. And that was a great success at all. So that's as well. So just going forward, I'm thinking Lisa's going to specifically talk about what our future endeavors we hope to do in the future. But those are things, the 3 things that we've done so far, we definitely like to repeat those, and because they were great success in the community and we had overwhelming response. So those are the 3 things that we've done so far. Lisa, did I forget something?
No, you did not. You did a great job, Tiffany. Thank you very much. I think the most important thing that people need to know is that we don't do this alone. And I wanted to pull up each of the different people's names who are part of this organizational work with us, because we do have a group of people that are thoughtfully and intentionally working with us. And it is a group that we intentionally made, that we created. It was specifically with African Americans, because all of the things that we are funding are through generational wealth building and understanding of African American community. And we thought it would be a very strong start for us to have those conversations ourselves, to talk about what do we need to build the wealth and to also establish sustainable opportunities within our community. And then we will branch out from there. But the conversations that were needed, because majority of the time, these are not the faces that you see at the table making the decisions for people of color. We wanted to start and empower ourselves with those voices, and also hear from ourselves what we are seeing and hearing within our own community, and how we can also be a part of that healing. And so we are so happy to have had Dr. Camille Burnett from the College of Nursing at the University of Kentucky. We have Russell Allen, who's a community organizer. We have Chandler Fearson, who is Frierson, who is a student in the university. Andrea James, who used to work with the city, who is now working in another capacity. Mark Johnson, who works with Art Inc. Kentucky. Christian Motley, who is a senior manager in policy and partners Strive Together. And Debron Thomas, who is with WUKY Radio. So I know that we don't want to take too much more of your time, Lyle, but we just want to make sure that people know that at the end of the day, this is about us helping people understand about building a healthy, financially viable, inclusive, and culturally diverse community. And we can't do that if there's not enough balance and understanding of the programs that need to be pushed forward by our community. So we are trying to do our part, and we are very excited and very humbled to be a recipient of any funding that we get from the people who are on the call today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys, Lisa and Tiffany. We really appreciate your input. Thanks for the good work you're doing in the community. Keep it up, and we'll let you know how the fundraising goes. Thanks. You know what? Hey, Brad, don't you have another buddy that you need to introduce up there? By the way, we have about, I think we have 3 more speakers. We may have a 4th if he gets out of the board meeting, but right now we've got 3. So if you're hanging with us, we appreciate it. Let me tell you what, you don't want to miss any of them. They're all great.
And you could throw a little love my way for not being muted. So I did that one well this time. So I'm not muted.
Yeah. You can introduce somebody. What about that?
I am. That's what I'm going to do. So we have a director of human resources there at HRG. He's a person with a great deal of great HR experience and background. He's an acting director for 2 of our incredible clients for HRG. He brings a mature, positive, value-based perspective to helping organizations build a strong and positive work environments. Let's turn the mic over to best practices in engaging people at work through Mr. Chip Barton.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for having me. So I'll dive right in. I've got just a couple of minutes here, but I've got several things I'd like to cover, some of which has been touched on already. But I think first and foremost, when we've talked about this in the past, and I think Katie, you hit on this earlier, is don't be afraid to have the conversation, for starters. I think now, if you're not having the conversation, you're going to stand out in a negative way because you're going to be behind, and your employees aren't going to be engaged. And then other things that, just a few things I've thought about, really is start at the beginning, right? So do what you can to hire and attract engaged employees already. So you can do that a number of ways. Create inclusive job advertisements and job descriptions. And the way to do that, things like consider avoiding gender-coded words in your ads. I think there's been a trend over the past few years of creating these catchy ads using names like Rockstar and Ninja and Guru. And I think people have stepped back and said, okay, let's be just more descriptive about the job itself and stay away from words that could be gender coded. Consider revising your EEO statement, not just company XYZ is an equal opportunity employer, but add a paragraph or two about your commitment to diversity and your diversity statement. Review your benefits plans and call out in your job advertisements things like benefits that you have that can be inclusive. So parental leave, flexible work schedules, childcare subsidies, student loan repayment benefits. Those are going to help you attract a more diverse workforce because they really stand out. As I was looking through some of this, the number one financial concern of the future workforce is student loan debt. So there's great new ways to attack that with benefits. The next point is just acknowledge and honor multiple religious and cultural practices. Oftentimes our traditional holidays that we give employees are things like Good Friday and days off around Christmas, but think about allowing people to have alternate holidays or floating holidays. There may be people who don't need to take off at that time and want to use their time for their own religious holidays. So consider those things. Another one that Andrea and Kendra obviously talked about was conduct an internal pay equity study. Make sure that you're paying people fairly and equitably. It's a fact that women and people of color are traditionally paid less than their male counterparts. I think there's been progress made on that in the last few years, but there's a lot of progress that still has to be made. So one of the things that always frustrated me when at some employers I've worked with, they want to hire people based on their current pay, and they'll say, well, if they're making this much, I can pay them $5,000 more, and they'll jump and they'll change jobs. But what's wrong with that? If you don't have a market-based compensation study, is you still might not be paying women and minorities what they should be paid, right? So keep that top of mind. And then the last thing I'll touch on real quickly is just, if you haven't done so, conduct an employee engagement survey. And when you do that, make sure that you really include thoughtful and meaningful questions about diversity, and be prepared to talk about those and take action on those when you get your results. So those are just a few things that jump to mind when we talk about best practices. I know there are a whole lot more, but we've seen in some of our clients and even employers that I've worked with in the past, if you do these things, you will attract a more diverse workforce, and you will retain that workforce, and you'll experience better knowledge sharing. You'll experience better innovation and creativity within the organization. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chip and Brad. Appreciate that very much. Good work. We've got two more great guests. George Wright, are you still with us? I hope you are. George Wright.
Yes, I am still with you.
All right, great. George has been in that UK board meeting today also. He's a vice president of institutional diversity at the University of Kentucky. He's author of several books and dozens of essays on historical issues, but particularly racial relations and civil rights. And I just felt like listen, I've been hearing really good things about what's going on at UK, steps you're taking that are education related, organization related. And I thought it'd be really great if you could share those with us. What do you think, George?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to have this opportunity. I grew up in Lexington. I attended public school in Lexington. I have 2 degrees from UK. And then after finishing my doctorate, I came back here, but then I moved away for 40 years. But I was telling everyone that I know Lexington, um, on and on. Well, guess what? In the years since I've been back here, I have learned so much. And Lyle, I'm serious when I say this afternoon, I've listened to the program and to know all of these things that are going on. You know, see, sometimes when you don't know something, you assume that things are not happening, as opposed to the fact that there's so much going on right here in Lexington and Central Kentucky. And so I'm just so pleased to hear about all of these other DEI efforts. To speak specifically about the University of Kentucky, this time last year, President Capilouto and the UK Board of Trustees said that they wanted to have a DEI initiative. Now that's against the backdrop of UK's 2021 different colleges and schools already having some DEI initiatives of their own, like to make conditions better for students, to hire more diverse faculty or staff, to be sensitive on language and things like that. But they wanted to pull this together. Well, that turned out to be very challenging. First of all, some people said, enough already. I mean, we've heard you say this before. Are you really committed to being engaged in this for the long haul in that sense? And then a university that large, there's bound to be someone who's had a bad experience here, bad experience there, and they then say, you're really not committed. Well, some 700 people volunteered to be involved, excuse me, and we came up with 17 different projects. Lisa Higgins Horde was just on here. She is the executive sponsor of our community engagement project, where we're working with the city of Lexington to make sure that minority business contractors have every opportunity to do business with UK. But we're also concerned about health services in Lexington and Central Kentucky. So that's something else that we're doing. And if you are working at UK, you live in the city of Lexington or in the surrounding areas, we want to have better relations there. So just like Lexington, the city has its DEI project. If you look at it, UK is involved in it. But in addition to that, we're doing a new cultural master plan at UK, being very sensitive to all aspects of our environment, our racial environment, things for the disabled and the like. We're concerned about art at the university, that we want our art to reflect the range of people at the university. Now, of course, that's very difficult to do because however many people work at the University of Kentucky and our students, that may be that many people who say this is the kind of art that should be focused on versus that kind of art. So I know how difficult that is, but nevertheless, we want to have art that's very reflective. One of the most important things that we're doing, and it's very difficult to do, and that is we're addressing what is responsible speech. What is free speech? And a university's cornerstone has to be free speech. But is everything acceptable under free speech? How do you balance a person's right to say something versus many of the groups that you've had on your program today, their rights as well? So what you have to do is the main thing about DEI is that we want to bring everybody to the table. As the person in charge of it, I've said that the thing that distresses me the most is not conflicting views, is that so often we've not sat down and talked seriously at all about race. And we've not listened to everybody. I may consider myself an expert on race, but if you are sincere, if you are thoughtful, you are just as qualified as I am to address race. And you know what? I need to hear you as much as you need to hear me, that we can both benefit. So, in other words, the University of Kentucky, through 17 different work streams, is committed to looking at ways to make the university more inviting for all of its faculty, staff, students, now and into the future. That's what we want to do. And even though we may have started with certain issues related to African American, we're also interested in women, other underrepresented groups, poor whites. Everybody is welcome at the table. I'll close by saying this, Lyle, that I came to the University of Kentucky in 1968, and I was not qualified even by the standards of admitting folk to college back then. Trust me on that one. I tell folk that I was admitted to the University of Kentucky because I had graduated from high school and could breathe. Well, nowadays it takes a lot more than that. But guess what? I had people who went out of their way and encouraged me. I'm not so sure we really do encourage young people today, especially if we see these young people as being somehow different or loud or whatever with young folk. I've worked with a lot of young folk, and you know what? I've had some folks say they don't like their hair. What I've decided, one of the reasons we may not like their hair is because we can't grow that kind of hair. I can't grow hair anymore, you see. But I suspect if I was young, I might have my hair a certain color and so forth. And guess what? You can change the color of your hair. So why get hung up on the color of somebody's hair in that regard? Instead, encourage young people. I want to give back to them the very things that UK gave to me. So that's what I view DE&I about at the University of Kentucky.
Hey, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, good input. You're inspiring.
Well, to work at a place like the University of Kentucky is inspiring because it can change one's life. I don't care how many times people have said that and they kind of shake their, a university can change one's whole life. And it can provide opportunities throughout one's whole life and can lead into directions that you can't even possibly imagine. You see, we're not smart enough to be sitting here right now and say what the world is going to be like in 40 years from now. But the university can help you be prepared for whatever that world is like in 40 years from now. And we want to make sure that everybody is there. Last night, I was watching the local news here, and I think a young man from Lexington Catholic, I believe, won some kind of award with Google. Okay. And he was African American, and I was so happy for him. I mean, I don't know this young man, but you know what I thought? There would have been a day he would not have won that. Not only would that have hurt him, but just think how much it would have hurt society. You see, we have no inkling of where we would be had we always provided opportunities for all of the people you've been talking to today. Just think of how much further along we would be as a society.
Well, we got lucky when we got you to wrap this baby up. I got to say it. I'm getting cheers here over on the comments, George. And I didn't tell the whole group that we lost you for a while. You went to that other place. I think it's called Duke University.
That's exactly right. And I get in trouble here all the time because I tell folk, I love UK. I love Duke. Lord, come on, you all. What's wrong with that? But folks tell me there's something wrong with that.
Hey, that's a great school. And you did very well there. I know you were awarded, but I'm glad you ended up back here.
Yes.
What a great contribution you're making to that community. And I've talked to Dr. Capilouto. I know how excited he is about what you're doing. He's gotten behind you for it. And I just think it's really great. So Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
is
you.
great.
And I look forward, please, I look forward to interacting with all of the folk that you had on your program today. Tell them they are all welcome at the University of Kentucky.
Thank you. Isn't it cool, all the neat things that are going on? Listen, wait until you hear this last guy, okay? I want to introduce Darfrey. And Darfrey is an artist. He used mixed media and collage techniques, there's Darfrey, to capture candid stories and moments and unveil truths and to make statements, to how to try to break down stigmas and a variety of things. And I was going to have him on early because there was a piece he was working on. He was going to show it, but I think he's ready to show it now. We're getting behind on time. So Darfrey, are you here? And can you share with us what you've been working on during this program?
Thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me okay?
Loud and clear. You're looking good. Yes, sir.
It's nice to see everybody on. I've been here since the beginning and just hearing some just wonderful things that I didn't even know was happening in this community. I'm a Lexingtonian, born and raised. I'm a self-taught artist, and my artwork came out of strength out of adversity. It warms my heart that so many people are trying to bridge this gap of diversity, inclusion, and it hits really, really close to home. So, growing up here in Lexington, Black, but not only Black, but light skin as well. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. My parents both had, really, really good jobs. So I couldn't help, where I lived. They had a really, really nice home. I didn't fit in with the Black kids because I didn't ride the bus. I didn't fit in with the white kids because I was Black. So, you kind of grow up with this sense of, like where do you belong? Because, looking in the mirror, I'm just me. Those that know me, I'm just kind of the embodiment of love. That's kind of just what I try to pull out. But when the art came about, it kind of hit me by storm. It was strength out of adversity, going through some really, really difficult times in my life as an adult that I never thought that I would ever have to go through. But through that situation and situations, I prayed and I just asked God to handle it, to show me what was next, because I knew that he wasn't done. And so out of that, I had this dream and I heard these words that you needed color in your life. So I picked up some markers and some crayons, and you're looking at somebody who's never drawn, never, painted, never did any of these things. And I just started picking up some markers and crayons and I started doodling on paper. And all of a sudden this shift just happened. And I thought that that was something that was just for me, but it was actually became a ministry. And you can see some of my work behind me. These are some of my bigger pieces that are like 48 inches by 60 inches. I started doing illustrations first. I love animals. I'm a big animal advocate. And so I was illustrating animals. I started doing greeting cards. That turned into my own greeting card business called Darfrey Studios. I am one of the vendors here at Julietta Market. Very proud to be here and what they stand for. I've been here since the inception. I was part of the planning team of all of that. And so this is my gallery wall. It's a 40-foot wall. And this is my exhibit called Behind the Roses. And going from illustrations to being able to, in my artist statement, I talk about bridging the gap, being a bridge over colored water. I think because of my past experiences and being able to relate to both sides of the track, I wanted, and my friend group, my family group is so diverse in, beliefs and color and everything. And I was just like, this is kind of who I am. And I was like, what is it what is my legacy? What am I supposed to bring to the world? And those are stories. And my artist statement talks about, who doesn't love a good story? A story is a wonderful way to educate. Some people love, written words, and that's great. I do that as well. But I'm a visual learner, always have been. I love colors. I love images, symbolism and things like that. So I go out with my camera and I started taking pictures of people in the community, white, Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Japanese, Latino, whatever it is, whoever you are. These are people that are in my friend groups. These are people that I've met at the grocery store. And all of a sudden I start, cutting these pieces out. Here's an example up close so you all can see. This is one of my newest pieces here. Hope everybody can see this. This piece is called Through Rose-Colored Glasses. So as Mr. Lyle talked about one of my passions is and loves is breaking down stigmas. I love to challenge the viewer to dig a little bit deeper and look in, why is this the way it is? Looking through rose-colored glasses is a person who's, pretty overly optimistic. And then I kind of sit back and I'm like, well, what's wrong with that? Why can't I be optimistic about my future? Growing up as a young, African-American male, you're told so many times over, you have one strike against you because you're Black. You have another strike against you because you're a Black male. We don't sometimes realize what that can do to a person, mentally, and you feel like that you have to be competitive. You feel like that you have to, one up somebody else. But what that does is, in my opinion, it causes division. So when it comes to these collage pieces, the final product might look like an African-American figure because I do portraits, but they're made up of people from all different types of walks of life because I believe that we're all created equal. They look African-American because it's an African-American standpoint, which is me. But I challenge people to get past the look and really understand, the story behind these pieces. I have written narratives to go with a lot of these pieces. So this exhibit behind me, going back to that, is called Behind the Roses. I do a lot here in Lexington in the horse industry, telling the true narrative of the African-American horseman that spearheaded the horse industry here in Kentucky. I've had my work shown at Churchill Downs Derby Museum. I'm in talks with some people at Kingland about doing some things because I believe a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm a type of person that I believe that all of us are complex. And just because you have an occupation, that's not all that you are. There's a deeper person in there. You have other stories that got you to that place. And I think it's important for us from a inclusion standpoint is not to be afraid to ask questions. You might learn something about somebody that you did not know, even people that you've known for years. So when you have these type of thoughts, feel free to open up those conversations with these people, because what that does is that lets this other person know that, wow, this person is really interested in knowing more about me than just the surface. And that's what story pieces are about.
Yeah. Do you have something special you wanted to show us from today, or did you already show us one?
No, that was it. That was one of my that was one of my new pieces. It's this piece here is one of my most intricate collage pieces. So, for example, this has about 12 different people that make up this young man wearing this crown.
Wow, yeah.
Come to the details there.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah,
we are so glad you've been here with us and to show us this stuff. Really cool. Nice way to wrap up things. We've got we're trying to wrap up, and I wanted to just make a few more quick comments. Yes, what?
I just said thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Just for all those out there, thank you for hanging with us. We appreciate it. Tomorrow's Best Place to Work, and that's something we've had a hand in, and they're going to celebrate 100 companies across the state who've done a lot of things and to try to make their companies a better place to work and a better place for everybody to thrive. So I think that's going to be really interesting. You know what? Miss Whitfield, are you still with us? She has really thrown in some nice comments, and she had a quote there. Yeah. I'm gonna borrow your quote and wrap up with it, okay? But before I do that, I want to say this, that a situation like we're facing now in the United States, all the things we've talked about today, they require action on our part and the part of our community and the part of our businesses to change, to improve, to be better. And so that's what today was all about, is have you seen some things that would help you be better? I hope so. And Ms. Whitfield put a RISE pledge out here. I'm going to alter it ever so slightly, and I'd like to wrap up with this. And I'm not the greatest reader, but here it goes. It starts like this. It's time to rise up, to become the empowered woman or person, if you will, We are destined to be capable and innovative. We are the leaders of our generation. Well, some of you are in a better generation than I'm in, but anyway, we will value one another and celebrate our differences. We will listen to our other ideas to develop our own understandings. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I will persevere and rise above, because there's no limit to what we can do. We are a Rise Phoenix today and every day. We promise to be change makers and to lead the rise. I challenge each of you to be a part of leading the rise in our state, in our Commonwealth, across the Commonwealth. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Those of you who are still on here, I see, thanks. I love seeing you. Until next time, have a great day. And you know what?